When Grandpa Hernandez shuffled up to the wrought iron gate of the farmer's market that Saturday morning clutching his hand-woven basket and humming an old Spanish lullaby, he never imagined that the crisp autumn breeze would carry more than the scent of freshly baked bread. He would instead confront the searing sting of being labeled an outlaw in the very place he'd frequented for decades. Under Karen Whitmore's glossy umbrella of self-appointed authority, a hastily posted notice declared that all non-residents prohibited, and the mansion-style townhouse owner in stilettos and pearls had personally ordered the guards to turn away anyone perceived as unlicensed vendors or loiterers. Grandpa's weathered face, lined with 11 decades of sun and laughter, fell into a mask of disbelief as the young attendant pointed at Karen's decree and firmly barred his entry. As he fetched his hearing aid and politely tried to explain that he lived 3 blocks away and had been a regular customer since the market's opening day, HOA Karen materialized in a swirl of designer chiffon and righteous indignation, hissing that he had violated community guidelines and that no exceptions, no matter how sweet or gentle, would be tolerated. Shock rippled through the small throng of early shoppers who recognized Grandpa. Mothers clutching infants gasped, children clutched their mothers' skirts, and even the market manager hovered uncertainly, torn between duty and empathy. Unbeknownst to Karen, however, the rumor mill was already spinning. Word had spread that the Plaza's silent landlord, the enigmatic owner of the old movie theater on the Plaza's far side, had quietly purchased the entire strip years ago, and that his grandson lived among the very family she claimed to protect. The tremor of tension in the air hinted at an impending reckoning far more explosive than any neighborhood spat over lawn height. Instead of shriveling under her glare, Grandpa straightened his back, his voice resonating with the calm authority of a man who understood life's true value. He told Karen in measured tones that she had not only shamed him but also trampled on traditions and respect. A hush fell as everyone awaited her response, expecting perhaps an apology or at least a grudging retreat, but Karen's lip curled into a superior smirk, and she threatened to call the sheriff for trespassing. In that heartbeat of silence, an unannounced figure emerged from the crowd, a teenage girl with fierce green eyes, and a locket emblazoned with the same Hernandez crest Grandpa wore. She introduced herself as Isabel, Grandpa's granddaughter and the rightful heir to the Plaza property under her grandfather's trust. The revelation shattered Karen's composure. Her blush of triumph drained as Isabel produced official papers from her jacket pocket, each stamped with county seals and notarized signatures. She calmly explained that the market was private property owned by the Hernandez family, not the HOA, and that any attempt to ban or fine customers would be met with immediate legal action. A collective gasp reverberated through the plaza as Karen's guards exchanged uneasy glances, and the market stalls, once mere backdrop to her petty crusade, now hummed with renewed purpose and defiance. Stripped of her imagined power, Karen stammered, her pearls rattling against her chiffon as she demanded proof. Isabel slid the deed across the gatepost, the polished wood gleaming like a judge's gavel, then informed Karen that the plaza would remain open to all lawful patrons and that any future harassment would be grounds for an injunction. The air crackled with vindication as a choir of voices rose in support of Grandpa. "Let him in. He's family. Shame on you." The unity of the crowd was a stark counterpoint to Karen's solitary indignation. In a final bid to salvage her dignity, Karen pulled out her phone and attempted to livestream the confrontation to a local gossip channel, but her signal flickered as if the plaza itself resisted her narrative. The market manager seized the moment, taking the phone and wiping the screen clean before announcing that Karen was barred from filming without consent, and that her unauthorized broadcast violated privacy laws. Karen's defenses crumbled. Her triumphant facade shattered as she realized that every thread of authority she'd woven was rooted in nothing but entitlement. The plaza gate swung wide and Grandpa Hernandez, with Isabel by his side, strolled into the market as neighbors cheered and vendors waved loaves of artisan bread in salute. Above the plaza, the storm clouds parted, revealing a wash of golden sunlight that bathed the colorful stalls in warmth. The stall owners, emboldened, offered Grandpa free samples of seasonal produce, each handshake a testament to solidarity over small-town snobbery. "Grandpa, you're still the king of this market," Isabel teased as he tasted a freshly roasted coffee bean. He winked and replied, "Only if the people choose me." That afternoon, the plaza hosted an impromptu celebration. String lights were strung between lampposts, mariachi music swelled from the bandstand, and children darted through hay bales laughing. Karen Whitmore, now a solitary figure on the fringes, was left clutching her designer clutch, her eyes reflecting both fury and humiliation. In the months that followed, the Hernandez family instituted a community trust that guaranteed open access to the market for all residents, and the HOA bylaws were rewritten to prevent any homeowner from claiming extrajudicial power over communal spaces. Isabel became the market's ambassador, organizing seasonal festivals that paid homage to Grandpa's legacy and the diverse cultures of the neighborhood. And Karen, once feared for her overreach, faded into a cautionary footnote, her name whispered only as a warning against letting entitlement overshadow humanity. The plaza thrived in the spirit of inclusion, each vendor's banner and each guest's smile embodying a shared belief that no single person could dictate who belonged. So where do you stand? Was this a fitting end for a tyrant, or should mercy temper justice? Share your verdict. Right or wrong? And so the weeks that followed blurred into a whirlwind of whispers and wide-eyed glances as Maplewood Estates began its painful metamorphosis from an enclave of silent acquiescence to a community unafraid to speak its mind. The plaza, once a mere backdrop to Karen Whitmore's grandstanding, transformed into a vibrant mosaic of reclaimed power and unity. Yet even in the glow of newfound freedom, the memory of Karen's audacity lingered like a stubborn echo, reminding everyone how easily privilege could warp into tyranny when left unchecked. At dawn on the Monday after the market uprising, the plaza gates slid open to reveal burlap banners draped across wrought iron railings, each bearing words of solidarity penned in every language spoken by the residents. From Bienvenidos Todos to Welcome Everyone to Tukkunyin di Tonrup, the banners proclaimed a universal truth. Respect was not optional, and belonging was not a privilege to be revoked on a whim. Grandpa Hernandez, his silver hair catching the first rays of sun, stood among the early risers, farmers unloading crates of heirloom tomatoes, bakers dusting their loaves with flour fresh from the mill, and neighbors gathering to share coffee and laughter. As they greeted him with thumbs up and fist bumps, Isabel, radiant in her role as the plaza's young guardian, slipped an arm through his and whispered, "They see you now, Grandpa. Your name is spoken with pride, not pity." He squeezed her hand, his eyes misting, and replied, "It's your legacy too, Mija. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." Meanwhile, word of Karen's defeat rippled through HOA circles beyond Maplewood Estates, sparking fierce debates at water cooler gossip sessions, country club luncheons, and neighborhood block parties alike. Some defended her, claiming she had only sought to uphold standards and community integrity, while others saw in her downfall a rallying cry that democracy lived not in bylaws penned by a select few but in the collective voice of the many. The local newspaper headlined the story as "Tyranny Toppled at the Market," framing Karen as an emblem of entitlement humbled by truth. But no article captured the real drama, the tears that welled in the eyes of once intimidated neighbors as they reclaimed their agency, the unsteady laughter that bubbled up when a tuna sandwich vendor teased the burly security guard who had once barred their entrance, or the tremor of excitement that pulsed through the crowd when the plaza's old neon marquee, dark for years, flickered back to life with the words "Community First." Yet beneath the celebration lay a simmering undercurrent of caution. In hushed conversations at the gazebo, residents mused that if one person's entitlement could harbor such destructive potential, then vigilance would be their greatest safeguard. They formed a circle of trust, a rotating group of volunteers tasked with ensuring HOA decisions were transparent, that meetings were open to all, and that any hint of coercion was stamped out before it could take root. They called it La Ronda de la Verdad, the Circle of Truth, and its emblem, two intertwined hands crossed over an open book, became as ubiquitous as the plaza's flower pots. Even the children, inspired by the tale of Grandpa's triumph, penned their own odes on chalkboards set up beside the water fountain, sketching images of united hands, soaring doves, and blossoming gardens. In the midst of this rebirth, a surprising twist emerged. An anonymous benefactor began leaving envelopes atop the plaza's marble fountain each morning, filled not with money but with handwritten letters of confession from residents who'd once enabled Karen's reign. One day, an envelope creaked beneath a fresh sheath of autumn leaves, revealing a note from the retired dentist who'd voted for Karen's bylaws despite misgivings, claiming he feared ostracism if he spoke out. Another envelope contained a letter from the PTA president who'd suppressed complaints because she thought it beneath her status to mingle with disgruntled neighbors. Each confession was suffused with regret and a vow to never again forsake conscience for convenience. The Circle of Truth decided to publish these letters anonymously but faithfully on a bulletin board in the plaza, titling the collection Lessons in Courage. Reading them back to back, passers-by encountered an unvarnished portrait of how easily good people could be complicit in small injustices that snowballed into tyranny. It was a poignant reminder that accountability was not only for the powerful, but also for those who stood by in silence. Karen Whitmore, in her exile, could not have anticipated this twist, that her downfall would spur a deeper reckoning among her own supporters, uprooting a culture of deference and replacing it with empowered partnership. Meanwhile, life at Maplewood Estates settled into a new rhythm. Friday nights at the Plaza began featuring Storytime under the oaks, where residents of every age gathered beneath lanternlit branches to share tales of resilience, justice, and hope, the community's own oral history. Grandpa Hernandez often took the stage, his weathered voice weaving anecdotes of his childhood market visits in Mexico, where barter and camaraderie reigned over profit and privilege. Isabel, now a poised young woman recognized as the Plaza's ambassador, introduced him with pride, and when he spoke of that fateful morning when Karen's smug decree was overturned, the crowd would hush in reverent silence before erupting into applause. Yet even in the warmth of these gatherings, the drama of the confrontation lingered as a cautionary fable, that power grasped for without humility would inevitably crumble beneath the weight of its own arrogance. Then came the climax of the Plaza's transformation, the inaugural Festival of Freedom, a celebration born from the ashes of Karen's collapse, designed to honor the principles of inclusion, transparency, and shared community stewardship. Vendors from far and wide set up booths, artisans displaying hand-painted tortillas, poets reciting verses in 3 languages, dancers in colorful regalia swirling to rhythms that bridged continents. The Circle of Truth hosted interactive workshops on conflict resolution, civic engagement, and ethical leadership, while a makeshift amphitheater staged short plays reenacting the story of HOA Karen's entrapment by her own hubris. In one scene, children dressed as mini Karens attempted to shoo away shoppers, only to be gently redirected by actors playing Grandpa and Isabel, reminding them that kindness and fairness were the true hallmarks of leadership. The festival crescendoed with the unveiling of a sculptural installation, a gleaming bronze book flanked by 2 open palms, symbolizing the pledge every resident signed that day: to wield their rights responsibly, to speak up against injustice, and to nurture the bonds of neighborly trust. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the plaza pulsed with joy and purpose. Lanterns flickered to life, illuminating faces uplifted by song and laughter. The air vibrated with the promise that Maplewood Estates would never again be held hostage by one person's whims. In the final hours of the Festival of Freedom, a quiet drama played out on the fringes. A solitary figure watched from a shuttered townhouse window high above the plaza, her silhouette framed by heavy drapes. It was Karen Whitmore, observing the very space she had once tried to commandeer, now alive with unity she could no longer touch. Her reflection in the glass revealed a woman undone by entitlement, her shoulders hunched, her pearls gleaming like tears on her neck. For a moment, the heart of the plaza held its breath, wondering if mercy would cross that divide. Then, as if answering on behalf of the community, a single lantern drifted skyward from the plaza floor, a lantern inscribed with 2 simple words: "You're forgiven." It rose into the night, its flame a beacon of grace, illuminating the path not just for Karen but for all who sought redemption through humility. Back at the amphitheater, Grandpa Hernandez raised his arms toward the glowing lantern, tears glistening in his eyes. He turned to Isabel and whispered, "This is the greatest victory of all, the choice to forgive." She nodded, feeling the weight of that moment settle like a warm embrace around her heart. The crowd watched the lantern ascend, cheering softly as it disappeared into the canopy of stars. And in that luminous stillness, Maplewood Estates discovered its truest identity: a community bound not by fences or bylaws, but by the shared commitment to honor dignity, foster courage, and extend compassion even to those who once stood arrayed against them. So now we ask you, does forgiveness strengthen justice, or does it let wrongdoers off too lightly? Share your verdict. Right or wrong?